Good day, students! Today we are diving into one of the most anticipated pre-release analyses for Honkai Star Rail, none other than the enigmatic general herself, Feixiao. If you've been thinking she'll just be another filler character, then you need to think again, because Feixiao is about to shake up the meta in ways we haven't seen before. In this video, we'll break down everything you need to know about Feixiao before her release, from the kit showcased in the latest livestream to her potential teammates, relics, planar sets, and of course the best light cons to maximize her power. We'll cover it all to get you ready. So without further ado, let's pass the mic over to Mr. Ratio for an in-depth breakdown of Feixiao's abilities, and I'll meet you later on when we dive into the relics and light cons. Let's get started.
Her technique has quite a bit attached to it. Once activated, she will gain increased speed in the overworld, continuously pulling in adjacent enemies like a tornado, and once you grab enough enemies, you can enter battle, and you will deal damage at the start of each wave depending on the number of enemies you have grabbed. The important part of the technique is that you will also get at least one stack of Flying Aureus for her talent. Her basic attacks are nothing special, just a regular basic attack with some nice animations, especially if you are a gunblade enthusiast. Moving over to her skill, Feixiao will damage one enemy, and then afterwards immediately trigger one instance of her talent's follow-up attack. It can also be seen from the footage that she will also get an attack buff after using this skill. As such, you will want to use her skill as much as possible, and only switch over to her basic if you are lacking in the skill points department. Next up is the core aspect of her kit, the talent, which basically has three portions to it. The first one is the ultimate stacks attached to it, which has the same similar mechanic Eidolon has, except instead of debuffs, you will need multiple attacks on enemies to gain the stacks. You can save up to 12 stacks, and once you reach 6 stacks, you will be able to use her ultimate. She will get 1 stack after each 2 allies attack done to the enemies, with her ultimate attacks unfortunately not counting towards gaining stacks as can be seen from the live stream. Going over to the entire 12 stack count will not boost her ultimate damage, but instead you will be able to use it twice in succession. So unless you want to do a quick burst of damage from hitting an enemy with 2 bursts one after another, you should use her ultimate as soon as you reach 6 stacks of her talent. The second part of her talent is that after an ally attacks an enemy, Feixiao will launch a follow-up against that target one time per turn. What is important to note is that this follow-up will count towards the ultimate stacks compared to the ultimate hits. And the final part of her talent is that after this follow-up attack hits, she will get a damage increase for her attack. Therefore, it is advisable to always trigger the follow-up attack prior to using your ultimate to maximize her damage potential. And lastly, her ultimate, which is where most of her damage will come from. After reaching 6 stacks, Feixiao will launch 7 total attacks against an enemy, 6 of them in quick succession, and 1 at the end of the animation. Each hit from this attack will either deal increased damage if the enemy is broken with her gunblade, or against targets not broken with her battle axe. Basically, she will deal increased damage regardless of the enemy state, with the only difference being in the attack animation you will see. With the kit done, what would be the best way to play her? Well, it's quite easy. Start the battle with her technique to gain 1 extra stack of her talent and to damage the enemies at the start of each wave. While in battle, use her skill as often as possible in order to assure a second trigger of her talent follow-up attack each turn, as this will basically guarantee you 1.5 stacks for her ultimate each turn, meaning that in order to be able to use her ultimate every 2 turns, she will need another 1.5 stacks from her allies each turn, or 3 attacks per turn. This, of course, can be improved if your team has a high attack frequency, such as the follow-up teams. But if you want to play her outside of the follow-up team, try to maintain the 3 attacks per turn minimum from her allies. Once you reach 6 stacks of her talent, unleash her kill move, aka her ultimate, on the unfortunate enemy and send them to the Shadow Realm, or Storm in this case. If you truly have a grudge against a particular enemy, you can even save 12 stacks in order to really send a message by unleashing the ultimate twice in succession. This mechanic can also be used to finish up 2 enemies if you so desire. For her major traces, the A21 is mostly a quality of life 1, as it will allow you to enter the battle and expedite the use of your first ultimate, but will also be there as a cushion and net by giving you half a stack of her talent count in case you did not trigger the talent follow-up attack previously. You can also rely on this in case you do not have the full follow-up team build to help you with the stack generation. Her A4 and her A6 are personal damage gains, with A4 further cementing her place in follow-up team compositions, while her A6 will, as I have said, further boost the need to keep using her skill. The A4 trace is also responsible for some interesting interactions, like enabling the use of the 4-piece Duke set on her, as without this trace, the 4-piece Duke would have not been recommended due to the frequent interval of her talent follow-up attack, but after you unlock her A4, you will be able to pros its 4-piece effect after the first hits from your ultimate. So yeah, the priority for unlocking her major traces should be A4 over A2 over A6. For minor traces, she will get 28% attack, 12% crit rate, and 12.5% defense, out of which one of them was clearly not invited to the party. But hey, you can't have it all. And that is everything you need to know about her kit. Let us now take a look at the potential teammates she has. As you will want allies with a decently high attack frequency, pairing her with follow-up units will be the way to go. As such, for the sustainer slot, Aventurine will be the preferred option, but you could easily slot in Gallagher or Lingsha. Fu Xuan can also be a good option for the bonus crit rate she will provide. For the support slot, Robin will be the best option, as she will boost the damage coming from Feixiao and the other allies' follow-up attacks. And the action advance from her ultimate will further speed up the stack generation for Feixiao's ultimate. And would you look at that? She has her rerun in this patch, just there for the taking. It's important to note with Robin that the additional attack from Robin's ultimate should count only once, after the final attack, and not after each individual hit from Feixiao's ultimate. Therefore, don't go in expecting 1 million damage just from pairing these two. Apart from Robin, Bronya is an amazing option due to the action advancement she can provide to Feixiao to trigger more follow-up attacks, and for her team-wide crit and attack buffs from her ultimate. If you happen to also have an E4 Bronya, that will further improve the synergy against wind-weak enemies, as she will be able to launch her own follow-up attack with her basic. Sparkle can also be used, although her lower action advance value will net you a lower stack count in the long run compared to Bronya. For more budget options, Asta will work fine, due to the increased speed and attack she will provide, as well as Hanya for the same reasons, especially if you have them at higher Eidolons. For the final slot, you can go in with a secondary DPS or debuffer. Here the best option will be Topaz, as she comes in with high attack frequency due to Numbi's attacks, and a 50% follow-up damage debuff applied to the enemy, or more if you have her signature or her E1. And what do you know? Conveniently enough, she has her rerun in this patch as well. This does not seem planned in advance at all. Moving over from Topaz, you have two more budget options. March 7th, which should also get her final Eidolons in the upcoming patch, and the newly introduced Mose, which seems to be the 4-star version of Topaz. Both of them come with a decent enough attack frequency and a nice array of buffs and debuffs to amplify Feixiao's damage, and with Mose on Feixiao's banner, you may even grab some Eidolons on the way. Apart from these, you can go the debuffer route and slot in Jiao for the ultimate and damage increase he will provide, Pella or Black Swan for the AoE defense down, and Silver Wolf for the massive single target defense she has, as well as the elemental resistance reduction she has. All in all, Feixiao has plenty of available partners and room to improve her team's damage ceiling, and she also has the door open for potential teammates, as the requirements for her to play along well with them are not that restrictive. Any future unit with a high attack frequency, or with follow-up or ultimate amplification, will be more than welcome in her retinue. I will now let my worst half go over the relics for her, and I will let you all take this time to hit that subscribe button and to miss me until the next video.
For light cons, obviously, as the trend will not be broken, her signature will be the best one to maximize her damage potential. But apart from this, you can of course use the Herta light con, as this one comes with a nice crit rate buff and an attack buff which should not be hard to maintain. In case you don't want to yoink the Herta light con from the unit you already are using it on, Reisha's signature is a great alternative if you have it, since she can make use of its entire passive. Topaz's signature is also good if you happen to have an additional one lying around, but for more budget options, swordplay will be your best damage option, with only silence remains being a solid stat stick, especially in Apocalyptic Shadow. For Relics, you can also go with a couple of different options. Her best one for big numbers though is Valorous paired with Duran. In case you are looking to zero cycle or have a great set lying around, the Eagle set is the way to go. As mentioned previously on the Traces section, the second best option for her will be the 4-piece Duke set, as it will boost most of her damage now that her ultimate is also regarded as a follow-up attack after unlocking her A4, and also you can proc the 4-piece effect with each ultimate usage, as each individual attack will count towards it and will boost up the damage of the next hit. Alternatively, a 2-piece Grand Duke with either a 2-piece Valorous or a 2-piece Eagle will suffice until you finish the 4-piece sets, or if you have insane substats. For planar sets, Salsoto and Izumo can be used until you farm the Duran pieces. For the main stat, to look for each piece, crit rate or crit damage for the chest, speed primarily on the boots to increase her action count to be able to use more skills in order to trigger more follow-up attacks, or attack boots instead if you plan on using her with Bronya. Wind damage on the orb, with attack percentage being okay until you get the wind damage piece, and attack percentage on the rope. For substats, aim for the usual DPS stats of 75% plus crit rate and above 150% crit damage. For speed, it will depend on whether you go for speed or attack boots for the speed route, but for the speed route, aim for at least 143 speed, with anything higher being welcomed. For the attack one, try to get at least 120, aiming for 134 if you can get to it. For Eidolons, her first and second Eidolon will give you the best bang for your buck in terms of DPS increase for her, as her first Eidolon will give her an additional multiplier, as this one is separate from the rest of her kit's multipliers, and the second one being a supercharge for her ultimate stack generation, allowing you to get her ultimate back each turn when played in the right teams. Lastly, as always, if your bank account allows it, her E6 will be the biggest jump in damage. So if you want to see big numbers, this one is the one for you. But I would stop at her E2 if you truly want to hyper invest in her, with her E0 being a ridiculous high enough bar as it is. Finally, I want to give my opinion on her potential value and possible tier list ratings. In terms of potential, she is a pretty future-proof DPS unit, as her main damage ability, her ultimate, will be able to deal with any scenario the enemies find themselves in, meaning you can bring her against all future endgame content. Her synergy with the follow-up units also means that she might have a place in any number of future follow-up teams, as any follow-up sustainer, support or debuffer coming in the future will also become a valuable member of her team. And for the tier ratings, I predict she will be on the same tier as Acheron and Firefly for Apocalyptic Shadow and Memory of Chaos, and a couple lower for Pure Fiction, as she is at the end of the day a pure single target DPS. Although depending on her team, she can be seen as an asset there as well in dealing with the elite enemies, while the rest of the team clears the low HP mobs. So, should you go for her? The answer is yes, as she will not only be one of the best DPS units in the game, she will be the best wind damage dealer by a mile. And that is all you need to know about Feixiao. Hopefully now you have an idea on her potential, and if you decide to go for this not so lacking general, you now know how to help her reach even greater heights. Let me know if you plan on going for her, or if the general didn't quite convince you of her value. But until next time, I am Professor Veritas Ratio, and remember, stay smart and sexy.